Well, good morning and welcome to Tuesdays with the Pilgrim as we continue reading The Shepherd of the Hills by Harold Bell Wright with Chapter 5, Just Nobody. After the midday meal, while walking about the place, Mr. Howitt found a well-worn path. It led him to the group of pines not far from the house, where 5 rough headstones marked the 5 mounds placed side by side. A little apart from these was another mound, alone. Beneath the pines the needles made a carpet, firm and smooth, figured by the wild woodbine that clambered over the graves. Moss had gathered on the headstones, and the wind in the dark branches above moaned ceaselessly. About the little plot of ground a rustic fence of poles was built, and the path led to a stile by which one might enter the enclosure. The stranger seated himself upon the rude steps. Below and far away he saw the low hills, rolling ridge on ridge like the waves of a great sea, until in the blue distance they were so lost in the sky that he could not say which was mountain and which was cloud. His poet heart was stirred at the sight of the vast reaches of the forest all shifting light and shadows, the cool depths of the nearby woods with the sunlight filtering through the leafy arches in streaks and patches of gold on green, and the wide sky with fleets of cloud ships sailing to unseen ports below the hills. The man was very still, and as he looked the worried face changed. Once, as if at some pleasing memory, he smiled. A gray squirrel with bright eyes full of curious regard peeped over the limb of an oak. A redbird hopping from bush to bush whistled to his mate, and a bob-white's quick call came from a nearby thicket. The dreamer was aroused at last by the musical tinkle of a bell. He turned his face toward the sound, but could see nothing. The bell was coming nearer. It came nearer still. Then he saw here and there through the trees small moving patches of white. An old ewe followed by 2 lambs came from behind a clump of bushes, and the moving patches of white shaped themselves into other sheep feeding in the timber. Mr. Howitt sat quite still, and while the old ewe paused to look at him, the lambs took advantage of the opportunity, until her mother was satisfied with her inspection, and by moving on, upset them. Soon the whole flock surrounded him, and after the first lingering look of inquiry, paid no heed to his presence. Then, from somewhere among the trees, came the quick, low bark of a dog. The man looked carefully in every direction. He could see nothing but the sheep, yet he felt himself being observed. Again came the short bark, and this time a voice. A girl's voice, Mr. Howitt thought, said, "It's all right, Brave. Go on, brother." And from behind a big rock, not far away, a shepherd dog appeared, followed by a youth of some 15 years. He was slightly built, a bit tall for his age perhaps, but perfectly erect, and his very movement was one of undescribable grace, while he managed somehow to wear his rough backwood garments with an air of distinction as remarkable as it was charming. The face was finely molded, almost girlish, with the large gray eyes and its frame of yellow golden hair. It was a sad face when in repose, yet wonderfully responsive to every passing thought and mood. But the eyes, with their strange expression and shifting light, proclaimed the lad's mental condition. As the boy came forward in a shy, hesitating way, an expression of amazement and wonder crept into the stranger's face. He left his seat and started forward. "Howard?" he said. "Howard?" "Laddie, his name, mister. His name's Pete," returned the youth in sweet, soft tones. In the voice and manner of the lad, no less than in his face and eyes, Mr. Howitt read his story. Unconsciously he echoed the words of Mr. Matthews. Poor Pete. The dog lifted his head and looked into the man's face, while his tail wagged a joyful greeting. And as the man stooped to pat the animal and speak a few kind words, a beautiful smile broke over the delicate features of the youth. Throwing himself upon the ground, he cried, "Come here, Brave!" and taking the dog's face between his hands, said in confidential tones, ignoring Mr. Hewitt's presence, "He's a good man, ain't he, brother?" The dog answered by wagging his tail. "We sure like him, don't we?" The dog gave a low bark. "Listen, Brave, listen!" He lifted his face to the treetops, then turned his ear to the ground, while the dog too seemed to hearken. Again that strange smile illuminated the boy's face. "Yes, Brave, yes, we sure like him. And the tree things like him too, brother, and the flowers and the little flower things that know everything, they all a-singing to Pete 'cause he's a-come. Did you see the flower things in his eyes, and hear the tree things a-talking in his voice? Brave. And see, brother, the sheep like him too." Pointing toward the stranger, the boy laughed. The old ewe had come quite close to the man, and one of the lambs was nibbling on his trouser leg. Mr. Howitt seated himself on the stile again, and the dog, released by the youth, came to lie down at his feet, while the boy seemed to forget his companions, and appeared to be listening to voices unheard by them, now and then nodding his head and moving his lips in answer. The old man looked long and thoughtfully at the youth, his own face revealing a troubled mind. This, then, was Pete, poor Pete. "Howard," whispered the man, "the perfect image." Then again he said, half aloud, "Howard." The boy turned his face and smiled. "That ain't his name, mister. His name's Pete. Pete seen you yesterday over on Dewey, and Pete he heard the big hills and the woods a-singin' when you talked. But Jed he didn't hear. Jed he don't hear nothing but himself, he can't. But Pete he heard it all, Pete's people too. And the gray mist things come out and danced along the mountain, 'cause they was so glad you come. And Pete went with you along the old trail, 'course so you didn't know. Do you like Pete's people, mister?" He waved his hands to include the forest, the mountains, and the sky, and there was a note of anxiety in the sweet voice as he asked again, "Do you like Pete's friends?" "Yes, indeed, I like your friends," replied Mr. Howitt heartily, "and I would like to be your friend too, if you will let me. What's your other name?" The boy shook his head. Not me," he said. "Do you like Pete?" The man was puzzled. "Are you not Pete?" he asked. The delicate face grew sad. No, he said in a low, moaning tone. "I'm not Pete. Pete, he lives in here." And he touched himself on the breast. I am. A look of hopeless bewilderment crept into his eyes. I don't know who I am. I just nobody. Nobody can't have no name, can he?" He stood with downcast head. Then suddenly he raised his face and the shadows lifted, as he said, "But Pete, he knows, mister. Ask Pete." A sudden thought came to Mr. Hewitt. "Who is your father, my boy?" Instantly the brightness vanished. Again the words were a puzzled moan. "I ain't got no father, mister. I ain't me. Nobody can't have no father, can he?" The other spoke quickly. "But Pete had a father? Who was Pete's father?" Instantly the gloom was gone from the boy's face, and it was bright again. "Sure, mister, Pete's got a father, don't you know? Everybody knows that. Look." He pointed towards a break in the trees, to a large cumulus cloud that had assumed a fantastic shape. "He lives in them white hills up there. See him, mister? Sometimes he takes Pete with him up there through the sky, and of course I go along. We sail and sail and sail with the big bird things up there, while the sky things sing, and sometimes we play with the cloud things. All day in them white hills. Pete says he'll take me away up there where the star things live someday. We won't never come back again, and I won't be nobody no more. And Aunt Molly, she says she reckons Pete knows. Course I hate mighty much to go away from Uncle Matt and Aunt Molly and Matt and Sammy, 'cause they're mighty good to me. But I just got to go where Pete goes, you see. 'Cause I ain't nobody, and nobody can't be nothing, can he? The stranger was fascinated by the wonderful charm of the boy's manner and words. As the lad's sensitive face glowed or was clouded by each wayward thought, and the music of his sweet voice rose and fell, Mr. Howitt told himself that one might easily fancy the child some wandering spirit of the woods and hills. Aloud, he asked, "Has Pete a mother, too?" The youth nodded to the big pine tree that grew to one side of the group, and lowered his voice and replied, "That's Pete's mother." Mr. Howitt pointed to the grave. "You mean she sleeps there?" "No, not there." He pointed up to the big tree itself. "She never sleeps. Don't you hear her?" He paused. The wind moaned through the branches of the pine. Drawing closer to the stranger's side, the boy whispered, "She always talks that way, always, and it makes Pete feel sad. She wants somebody. Hear her callin', callin', callin'? He'll sure come someday, mister, he sure will. Say, do you know where he is?" The stranger, startled, drew back. No, my boy, certainly not. What do you mean? Who are you?" Like the moaning of the pines came the reply, "Nothin', mister. Nobody can't mean nothin'. Can they? Just nobody. But Pete lives in here. Ask Pete." "Is Pete watching the sheep?" asked Mr. Howitt, anxious to divert the boy's mind to other channels. "Yes, we attendin' them now, but they can't trust us, you know. When they call Pete, he just goes, and of course I gotta go along." "Who calls Pete?" "Why, they. Don't you know? I load you knowed about all things. They called Pete last night. The moonlight things was out, and all the shadow things. Didn't you see 'em, mister? The moonlight things, the wind, the stars, the shadow things, and all the rest played with Pete in the shiny mists, and of course I was along. Didn't you hear singin'? Pete, he always sings that way, when the moonlight things is out. Seems like he just can't help it." "But what becomes of the sheep when Pete goes away?" The boy shook his head sadly. "Sometimes they get so lost that young Matt can't never find 'em. Sometimes the wolves get 'em. It's too bad, mister. It sure is." Then, laughing aloud, he clapped his hands. "There was a fella at the ranch to keep 'em, but he didn't stay. Oh, he didn't stay. You bet he didn't. Pete didn't like 'em. Brave didn't like 'em. Nothing didn't like 'em. The trees wouldn't talk when he was around. The flowers died when he looked at 'em. And the birds all stopped singing and went away over the mountains. He didn't stay, though." Again he laughed. "You bet he didn't stay. Pete knows." "Why did the man go away?" asked Mr. Hewitt, thinking to solve a part of the mystery at least. But the only answer he could draw from the boy was, "Pete knows, Pete knows." Later, when the stranger returned to the house, Pete went with him. At the big gate they met Mr. Matthews, returning unsuccessfully from his trip. "Hello, boy," said the big man. "How's Pete today?" The lad went with glad face to the giant mountaineer. It was clear the two were the warmest friends. "Pete's mighty glad today, 'cause he's come." He pointed to Mr. Howitt. "Does Pete like him?" The boy nodded. "All Pete's people like him. Ask him to keep the sheep, Uncle Matt. He won't be scared at the shadow things in the night." Mr. Matthews smiled as he turned to his guest. "Pete never makes a mistake in his judgment about men, Mr. Howitt. He's different from us ordinary folks, as you can see, but in some things he knows a heap more. I'm mighty glad he's took up with you, sir. All day I've been a-thinking I'd tell you about some things I don't like to talk about. I feel after last night like you'd understand, maybe, and Might help me, you having an education. But still I been a little afraid, us being strangers. I know I'm right now, 'cause Pete says so. If you weren't the kind of man I think you are, he'd never took up to you like he has. That night the mountaineer told the stranger from the city the rest of the story. And that's the end of chapter 5. Next week we'll continue with chapter 6, the story. Until then, take care, stay safe, and God bless.